Welcome home, neighbors.
Welcome home, neighbors.
Hello, neighbors.
We're listening from
Arizona,
Florida,
Maryland, New York, New Jersey,
Indianapolis,
California, Utah,
Michigan,
Iowa, Massachusetts,
Georgia, Canada,
our home resort is
Animal Kingdom,
Polynesian,
Bay Lake Tower,
Old Key West,
Riviera,
Boardwalk,
Alani Resort,
Hilton Head,
Boulder Ridge,
Copper Creek,
Grand Floridian,
Saratoga Springs,
Beach Club,
and Wilderness Lodge.
and you're listening to
and you're listening
You're listening to my
DVC Voice.
Well, welcome home, neighbors. My name is Chad Pennycuff, and I am your host tonight here at the Community Hall Live podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at DVCResaleMarket.com, and we're going to be talking a lot tonight about direct and resale and building a DVC portfolio. So I'm going to skip the ad read because you guys are going to get enough great information and plugs, and you'll get to meet one of the lead sales guys over there, or lead guides, as I prefer to call them, Andy Berry. So let's come back in and kick off today's show. And the history of this show comes back in, and Gina was getting an awful lot of questions about why do you have so many different contracts, and how do you use your points, and why is some direct and why is some resale, and why does this matter? And after we beat on the idea as a team, we kind of came into the realization that there's a philosophy out there that I've been teaching that I just wanted to formalize, and it's called building your DVC portfolio. 93% of the members that we have in our community have added on or want to add on. So the point of today's episode is to talk about why members pick certain home resorts, why they pick direct, why they pick resale, and to come back into this school of thought. If you ask this question in a Facebook group, you're going to get 1,001 answers. Most prominent is buy where you want to stay, or buy the cheapest, or buy the this, or buy the that. Today, we're going to look at all of those philosophies from kind of a ivory tower perspective. If we climb all the way up into the spire where Tinkerbell sits, we'll look down across Magic Kingdom and look at all the different schools of thoughts from DVC members that are here. In order to cover this, I want to welcome my good friend and almost mentor, because we talk quite often, Mr. Andy Berry from DVC Resale Market. So welcome to the show,
friends.
Andy.
Welcome home. It's so good to be back. I almost forgot where I was supposed to go.
Yes. Now, Andy, you have sold direct for years and resale for years. And how many thousands of families have you walked through this questions?
So when I was a direct guide, I worked with over 6,500 members around the world. And in my last 4 years at resale, I've been able to work with over 3,000. So I'm closing in on almost 10,000 different member families that I've worked with, both resale, direct, and some of them I've even worked with that I don't even count, that I just help and answer questions and be here to help maybe alleviate some of the nerves and anxiety that they have. But I love doing what I do.
Okay. And also to come back in and help with this discussion, we're bringing our team lead from DVC Newscast, Mr. Pete Shidley, over to the show, who is also a really good friend of mine now, and I also talk to on an almost weekly basis. So welcome to the show, Pete.
Hey, Chad. Hey, Andy. Glad to be here. I love this kind of topic because it really is interesting. It's so easy, especially new members. They just come in, they take the tour, and they buy what DVC is selling, and it's not always the smartest thing to do. So, and especially once you have that first contract and you decide you want more, what's the way to go? Do you buy the same resort? Do you buy different resort? Do you buy some resale? So yeah, I'm excited to talk about this topic.
Yeah, it's really kind of fun, and we're trying to give a broad overview. So where we need your guys' help listening in, if we come across a philosophy that you have, leave us a comment below and identify as, yeah, I'm a buy where I stay kind of guy. I'm an 11-month, a 7-month, networker. I'm a economic buyer. Let us know what your thoughts are in this, and we want to come back in and go back through all of the comments and build it into another show where we tightly produce this, and it's not quite such a live interactive, but we want to tune up our thoughts and ideas here, and we need your comments to do it. So please engage with us and let us know what you think as we start to go through this content. So I'm going to add my little cheat sheet here, and not cheat so much, but because I'm kind of revealing it, but building a DVC portfolio. Are you a buy where you want to stay person, team 7 months, People buy DVC contracts for a variety of reasons. And today we're talking about this as a school of thought. And we're not only going to allow you, but we're going to encourage you to mix and match these types of paradigms of DVC ownership to build your own portfolio. I remember back before we built our house here in Orlando, we had 7 home resorts. We owned Beach Club, we owned Grand Cal, and those were our 11-month bookings. We also owned some Saratoga because they were cheap and they were our network points to shop around the entire network. So I've been in all of these categories at one point in time in my life. Andy, where have you been on this particular spectrum and scale here?
It's interesting because a lot of times when a family will go in and, let's say, talk to DVC Direct, like you said, they're going to buy what DVC is pushing. It's going to be either the biggest incentive they got or the commission that the agent's going to earn the biggest. And that may not necessarily be the right resort where you need to be owning at. And, you know, it's a catch-22 because you have to know what questions to ask the agent or the vacation club guide, or else you're going to be sitting in the ether knowing that, well, they're selling Riviera, I'm going to buy Riviera.
Yeah, it's been my experience that DVC guides get maybe a little bit sweeter commission if they sell an active property and it's got the best incentives for you. That's the good news as well. So the incentives, align for you and them there, but they're going to push whatever it is they're told to sell. And unfortunately, a lot of new members come back in and they only know to ask for an existing active property because that's all they're offered. So a lot of people end up into this strategy of buying whatever DVC is selling. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's prevalent and it's out there.
And even though the ROFR monster has been sleeping for the last several months, there is still probably plenty of existing inventory at the non-active selling or being sold resorts. You can find the points there from any of the guides you want to talk to.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Yeah, that number one, buy wherever DVC is selling, that's probably the only one on this list that has not influenced me in my contracts. I now have 4 contracts, and I've never at any point gone in and said, what's for there was never a point where I went, what's for sale? I'm buying that. So unless you count the Disneyland hotel, but that was with the intention that I wanted that. So that's actually still more of a
that's an 11-month booking one,
which is an 11-month booking window. Exactly.
Because we've all felt the pain of Grand Cal and not being able to book there. So we're all looking at that Disneyland Tower hotel saying, we're buying. Yes, I have points, but I'm buying points there to get the 11-month booking there. Yep.
And honestly, I have 2 contracts that are for that specific reason. The other one I did by resale, but it was at Boardwalk. My wife and I very much like going down for food and wine. We go down usually in November or late October. And, we were staying at other places because that time of year is very hard to get into. That's one of the harder times to book a studio. And we wanted to be at the, right there at Crescent Lake. And we said, let's get a Boardwalk contract. We got a 75-point contract. And that is all we've had that since 2017. And the points have only ever been used at Boardwalk.
Yeah.
And Chad, Chad and Pete, I work with a lot of families who do that very same strategy. They'll buy a small contract, or buy a contract with a smaller number of points. And they know through banking and borrowing, they're going to go there every 2 years, every 3 years, and only use those specific points at that specific resort.
Yeah, that's the buy where you want to stay strategy. It is exceptionally popular out there. It's probably the most championed strategy that you'll see people comment on. And so, yeah. Now, the plussing up to that is using it with 2 different resorts, like we did with Beach Club and Grand Cal. Through banking and borrowing, you can pull that off and get a couple of stays and almost always be able to stay where you want to stay from your 11-month windows.
Let me take that thought a little bit further, Chad, too, and Pete, is you're going to find when you talk to people or hear people talk, that you're going to have certain resorts that they may own, let's say, for example, a Grand Cal or a Disneyland Tower, and they're buying those points to only specifically use at that resort. It doesn't make sense, for example, to take a premium resort like Grand Cal or Bay Lake Tower or Grand Floridian and use those points at either Animal Kingdom or Old Key West. You want to maximize the use of those at those specific resorts only. I've got families who even take, like, for example, own Grand Cal and say, listen, I want to go to Saratoga Springs, and they'll rent out their Grand Cal points because of the premium they can get from those, and then take the cash and call Disney Travel and book a cash reservation at Disney at Saratoga Springs.
Yeah. And one thing to remember, this category, right? If you're buying these points to stay at that one resort, you don't need direct, right? Because I mean, direct, the big benefit of direct right now is you can use your points wherever. If I'm buying and all I'm doing is staying at Boardwalk, why do I need to spend whatever they're charging, $275 a point?
You don't.
For a Boardwalk contract from Disney.
And there's a bunch of people out there that buy Riviera resale for that particular reason. They know they want to stay at Riviera. They know they're 11-month bookers. And they look at this and they go, well, I can get this so much cheaper than buying direct. And that's the reason why you buy resale. Because I know when this first came out, I was like, I love my 7-month window and the flexibility and to move around and kind of juke and jive around the network and try all the stuff out. Not everybody is like that. So there's a variety of opinions here.
Well, there's another sort of extension of this too, Pete and Chad, is which do you buy first, resale or direct? And it comes down to use year and what do you need to have or what do you want to have? Like you go into the DVC preview centers today and they're going to sell you a specific use month. It may not be the most ideal for you, but that's what they're selling. Whereas another way to think about it is I can buy a resale contract first, drive my decision-making around that specific use month for that resale contract. And then if you want to buy a direct contract from DVC, then they have to match that month, that use month for you.
And not only that, if you hold that contract for a year, you'll now get existing member pricing. And so you'll save $3 to $5, maybe $10 a point if you're lucky when you do buy that direct contract.
Especially when the new construction's starting to come out too, with the glamping at over there at the cabins and the resort number 17 too, and also the Polynesian. Who knows what's going to happen there?
Yeah, we still don't know.
Well, and Andy, you get the opposite of that too. And I'm going to use this again, my example of my Boardwalk contract. I'd bought an Animal Kingdom contract at a December use year, and then we wanted to buy a small Boardwalk contract, but we wanted to go in October, November. We didn't really want a December use year for that contract.
Correct.
If I went to Disney, if I'd bought it direct, they basically would have said, you have to have a December contract. That's kind of how they work. And I was able to pick and choose and get a contract with a different use year. And yes, I realize it's more complicated, but when you're only using that one contract for that one resort, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. At that time of year, right?
Yeah. And so it was better that I got a contract. I got a spring use year instead of December use year. And now it's not in the last 2 months of my use year that I'm booking my trip all the time.
And I absolutely enjoy spending time with families talking about the use year discussion.
Yeah.
Because it's an easy concept to understand when you've been on the inside. But it's hard to understand if you're just trying to figure out, well, what got all these different months? What do I do?
Right.
And you, as a consultant to any of the families that I touch base with, I love spending time talking about what's the most ideal use year for them.
Yep.
Yeah. Inside the My DVC Points community group on Facebook, we have a files section. I have an Excel calculator there for you nerdy types that really want to come back in and rate how likely you are to go on vacation any given month. And it'll come back in and tell you what your optimal use years are based on how likely you are to go in vacation. And it'll even rank them for you.
Cool.
So that's a neat little tool that's out there. I kind of wish I could find a developer to like make a pretty version for the website and just send everybody to that. But it's on my list of things that I would like, but I'll probably never get funded, Andy.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So we mentioned my Saratoga points earlier that we're just buying for network points. Back when I bought in 2017, that was the rage for Saratoga because the dues were so cheap, the cost per points were so cheap, and everybody looked at it like, well, if you're only 7-month booking anyways, why do I want to buy some expensive points when I could buy these cheap points and they'll get the job done at the 7-month mark?
Yep. And that's an important thing to remember is all points. Well, now with some exceptions, obviously, depending on
2019, our slogan changed here
on the resale, but for the most part, all points behave very similarly at the 7-month window. Now, if you own Riviera and you bought it resale, then that doesn't happen with those points. Obviously, if you bought resale in the last few years, you can't use them at Riviera. You can't use them at Disneyland Hotel, but you can use them everywhere else. And again, so essentially all those points become the same at 7 months. So if you are not booking before 7 months, you do not need to own the Grand Floridian or the Riviera or one of these prime locations because you're competing with everybody. Your points are the same. At that point. So
I know multiple families that, hey, I just can't plan a vacation 11 months out in advance. 3 to 4 months maximum. And at that point in time, there's no point in buying super expensive points.
Correct.
Because they're not going to get you any kind of an 11-month advantage there.
Yeah.
In fact, Chad, you and I have discussed and debated almost 2 network locations to buy points. Saratoga Springs being the one we just talked about, but also Aulani because of the longer term lease.
Mm-hmm.
And, where people struggle with and not understanding is, well, okay, I live in Maine, I live in New Hampshire. Well, I don't want to own an Aulani because I'm never going to go there. Well, I'll assure you this, at least one time in your professional life, you're going to want to go to Hawaii.
You should go to Hawaii.
And it'd be nice to be able to book that at an 11-month window and know you're going to go when you want to go.
And not only that, Andy, if you can find one of those subsidized dues contracts from Aulani,
oh my goodness,
that thing is just pure gold because it's the cheapest dues in all of DVC right now.
Yeah.
So you can pick up one of those puppies. And then as we get down in here into the economic reasons, you're golden on that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like, why Vicky comes back in and she makes this comment here saying that she has 2 SSR contracts that are for network points and 1 villas at Disneyland Hotel that are there to stay there. That is very an emotional and an original Disneyland. It's her home park. And that's a really great example there. She says
and she could go and celebrate her birthday like she did maybe last week.
Yeah, there we go. She goes, my next contract, I'm considering a resale dedicated week for one of the Walt Disney World DVC properties. So that's a perfect example, Vicky, of coming back in and building a DVC portfolio that's intentional.
So let me clarify that for those who may be listening for the first time or not understand what a dedicated week is. You'll see them on our website if and when we get them, called guaranteed weeks. And those weeks are considered pre-booked for you. Member services will automatically book that reservation for you during a specific time of the year. And on that listing, it'll show you you're guaranteed to check in on Christmas week or Thanksgiving week or a week in July. And you don't have to take that reservation. You can always cancel that reservation, but it's already pre-booked for you, called a guaranteed week.
It's kind of like 12-month booking. It's booked actually 12 months in advance before anything else hits the system. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's almost like, sort of traditional timeshare. The way traditional timeshare used to work is you bought a specific week, a gold week, a silver week, a bronze week, or a platinum week. Now Disney took that concept and just called it guaranteed week. They're available to be purchased at Aulani, Copper Creek, Polynesian, and Grand Floridian, I think are the 4. Oh, and also at the new Disneyland Towers.
And Riviera.
Yeah. Nick points out that now Direct has retitled those as favorite weeks.
Awesome.
So, okay, favorite, guaranteed, whatever you want to call it. We're in. We love those things. And they make sense because you can get your cake and eat it too, because if you cancel it, you just get all the points back and you can use them however you want to. Bank them, borrow them, do whatever you want.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. And
It's nice, a nice example. For example, we have 4 kids that are scattered around the country. And if we wanted to tell the kids, hey, listen, we would like to go to Disney World every year in August, we could pick the week and we could book a reservation. We could do a guaranteed week or a favorite week purchase, and then have that to know that the kids could go there at any given time during that week.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's especially good in both popular times and popular room categories. So if you're looking for, one example would be you want the standard view studio at Riviera the first week of December, which is a very popular time. You buy that guarantee week. And yeah, it looks like Steve is talking about that they bought a direct Riviera contract with the oh no, sorry, separate topic. But yeah, so you buy that week, you decide you don't want to go, you just convert it to regular points and use it whenever you want. So there is advantages to that. And that's and again on if you resell it, it holds those it holds
guaranteed
that week.
weeks. Yeah.
Yep.
When it makes it over to Andy at DVC Resale Market, it's still a guaranteed week. And it's a fixed amount of points. If they change the points on there, you're locked in. Okay. If they go up, you're still good. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll get questions from guests who come visit us that says, why does this contract have 336 points or 257 points? Many times those are either those favorite week or the guaranteed week contracts that were predetermined the amount of points needed for that resort. But that's a good point, Chad, that if the points do change through rebalancing, that those points will always guarantee you to get that specific size villa.
Yep. So let's move on to the next topic here, which I can really relate to, is people will buy direct to maximize their flexibility. I know when we sold off like 1,000+ points to buy the house here in Orlando, we specifically sold off the resale points and kept the direct ones just so that we had guaranteed flexibility. Although the cruises and all of that other kind of stuff is a bad use of points 99% of the time, I still wouldn't mind keeping that as an option. And I also realized that I book enough at the 7 months that it really didn't matter to me for the home resorts. And I was getting a premium for Beach Club and Grand Cal when I sold them. So it was like more cash in, amputate those. I'll deal with the 11-month and I know what I'm doing. I can get what I want. So, but that is one really good reason to buy direct, is if you want to guarantee that flexibility, you can put some direct points into your contract portfolio here. And now you can go wherever you need to go, stay wherever you want to stay. You've got full flexibility.
Right. Some of it is FOMO, right? People are afraid of missing out. They want to have that ability to use those points any way they want to, whether it's on a cruise or ABD or everything like that. Now, I personally argue against that because, I think beyond using DVC for the actual DVC resorts, there's better uses of your points, or you can rent those points out, put more money in your pocket than you would get from using those points for that cruise, and just pay cash for the cruise, with the exception of obviously if you want to do the member cruise or something like that, those you have to have points. But I don't know, but I get it.
We get it. We wouldn't necessarily do it, but here at My DVC Points, we're open to all thoughts and ideas, and all members. We respect all of your all's opinions, and that's why we like you to share. We like you to comment, and we'll accept them. We'll critique them. Okay. And whether it's for us or not for us, or what you should think about with it, but you're fully accepted if you bought direct points just for the network flexibility, for FOMO, even though we're huge resale fans here as well. We're Disney fans, and we're an inclusive community, no matter what you buy. So that being said and done, I know I have some members that have bought Old Key West because they grew up going there. And as they've come into adulthood, as this resort is now 30 years, there was no other choice for them to buy Old Key West because of their emotional ties growing up there. So that is a really good reason to buy where you love. Nostalgia runs deep at Disney. It's kind of like a core memory woven into the Disney DNA of what they do here. So I kind of get it.
Mhm.
I remember last summer working with a family from Reading, Pennsylvania. We'll keep their last name, their surname synonymous, and them calling me. The first conversation says, "I remember when my mom and dad used to take my brother and I to the Polynesian, and that's why we have to own there."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's the emotional part just drives way through the core DNA of certain people.
Yeah. And that's a very valid reason to add some poly points into your portfolio.
Mhm.
So I think all of these are valid reasons, right? It's just which ones are valid and which ones resonate with your values.
Yeah, and
So-
along the Polynesian conversations, if there's any Beatle fans out there, you may want to own at the Polynesian, because if you didn't know, that's where the Beatles signed their divorce papers. So you can
Yep.
live on with the Beatles by owning at the Polynesian.
Yeah, there you go, Andy. There you go.
Do they
Now-
have the John Lennon suite for that you can go in there and mourn?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Because we don't know what room what room it was he was in. It was
There's
John
some
Lennon
good theories
signing
out there in the
documents.
interwebs, Pete. I'll let people Google that. We'll save that for another show. But
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah. Now, this next one was a shock to me, because I always looked at this and went, why on God's green earth would you want a 2042 contract? They're going to be gone in like 18 years, and more points, longer expiration, more time to use is better. And then I got to talking with some more members, and I started to realize, like Andrew from episode 19, when he started selling off points to, because his daughter lost interest in going, she's in college now. She actually said, you know what, Dad, I really don't have any interest in owning DVC as an adult. And he looked at this and owned Poly, he owned Copper Creek for sure, and I think Animal Kingdom. And so he looked at this and he said, you know what? My daughter doesn't have any interest in this. I don't want to have myself expire before the contracts expire. So if I sell off the older ones and keep the old Key West, that's less likely she's going to have to deal with this in the future, because she just said she didn't want to deal with it.
Mhm.
So I'm going to sell off the longer ones and keep the shorter ones as my value. And I know Sandy on our team loved buying Vero Beach because she didn't want to burden her kids with contracts that they may or may not want either.
Mhm.
So longevity it goes both way, long or short.
Oh, my
A lot of
kids
times
can
I'll hear
s-
from families that say they want a longevity contract because they want to know that once they enter eternal life and the kids use the points to go to a certain resort, whatever it is, that they know that it's sort of like mom and dad watching over them as they take this holiday or vacation together.
Yeah, very much so. And then now we've got the whole variety of economic reasons that people come back in. And there's all different kinds of ways to slice and dice these things. Some people look at this and go, man, I want to buy Copper Creek resale because it's still got 45 years left of life in the contract. When I divide that out by a cost per point, this thing is coming out as a smoking great value.
Mhm.
Grand Flow comes in here at the same formula. Some people look at this and go, man, I don't mind the upfront, but it's the dues that'll kill me over the long run. How do I buy the contract with the lowest amount of dues? And we know all the dues are going to go up, but if they're going to go up from a low point, I'd rather have them start low and go up than go high to go even higher. And then there's people that look at the combination of points left and dues. And when you do that analysis, Grand Flow ranks really high, Poly ranks really high. So a lot of the newer resorts really rank high there. And then I never understood why people bought Vero Beach, because the dues are astronomically high there. However, it has a lower initial cash outlay. And some people look at this and they say, hey, I can buy Vero Beach, get into the Disney system, 7-month network wherever I want to go, but I don't have to bring as much cash to the table because I'm paying $64 a point as the guy who's buying BLT at $169 a point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
there's
nothing
ahead.
here. Nothing here has like nothing here is dumb, right? Everything you're talking about here is
Mhm.
logical in its own way. And for me, I think for most of my biggest contracts, I have 260 point contracts at Animal Kingdom. And it was really a combination of these things. It was, I wanted a resort. It's not my very, very favorite resort, but it's one of my favorite resorts. So it was I always say, don't buy in a place. I mean, if you have to buy in a place that you love and you have to stay there, fine. But make sure you at least buy in a place that you like. That if that's the place you end up at, because 7 months is filled up, buy a place that you like. So that was number one. Number two was lower cost per point at the time that I bought it. And it's still fairly low cost at Animal Kingdom. It was length of contract. It wasn't a 2042 contract. I think it's 2057 or something like that. I'm not sure the exact year, but it's long enough that, we'll be in our 80s. I think I won't be going to Disney quite as much by then.
You don't know.
Hey man, I want my kids pushing me in that wheelchair. I push you through the strollers, you push me in the wheelchair. That's the deal. Right?
And it was a combination of that and the cost and the flexibility of knowing you had the flexibility of the 7-month window. So it's a little all of this. The dues, I would argue with people on that one only because dues change. And to say, oh, and a good example was, 6-7 years ago, Saratoga was by far the lowest dues. And a lot of people bought there because of that. And it's not that it's gone high, but it's like fourth,
it's not
or
the
fifth
darling
now.
gem it used to be.
Yeah. Right. And that can shift over time. So,
but there's also some controlling factors in there as well. Like Grand Cal, that there's no boats, there's no buses, there's no transportation. It's a small tower. It's very energy efficient versus Copper Creek Cabins. You've got all of these individual buildings to maintain and heat and cool. So you can look at the dues here and kind of somewhat eyeball it somewhat reasonably, but you can never, ever really 100% predict what the dues are going to do.
That's what I'm saying is don't buy purely by dues, because, you can certainly use it as a factor for sure. If a resort has low dues now, it's probably going to maintain low dues for a while, but don't be, I only bought because of the dues. That would be my one argument.
Well, I think go ahead, Andy.
Hey, I was going to say, Chad, I spend a lot of time with families talking about, as you described it, I call it the fully accounted look at the cost of ownership, which is the cost per point to acquire it, plus the dues, let's say it again, the cost of purchase divided by the number of years remaining on the lease, plus the dues is a fully accounted look at the world. And in today's world, Grand Floridian and Riviera are up there as the most economical resorts to own. And you'll say, well, Andy, I don't want to own at Riviera because of the restrictions. But here's a simple walk around. If you own at the Riviera and you want to stay at Animal Kingdom or Saratoga Springs or Old Key West or Aulani, just call the DVC rental store, rent out your points at Riviera, take the cash from those rentals, and book a cash reservation.
Or trade with another member, because there's
a lot of different ways to get around.
There's a lot of resale members who would like to stay at Riviera but can't because they're locked out of that resort as well.
Yeah, so don't let I always tell people, don't let restrictions be an inhibitor as to why you want to own there.
But carefully consider them, and what works well for your family is
correct.
How I'm going to come back in and do this.
But I do like to point out this though. And I totally agree with you, Andy. I love that factoring of saying, buy-in divided by years plus the dues. But you also should always consider, and it's a harder thing to factor in, how much does it cost to stay there in number of points wise? Because even though Riviera from a individual point perspective is actually a pretty good value.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You might have to.
You just made me add one to my list. Okay.
Yeah. You might need 1,000 points to stay there for 7 nights.
Right. Yeah. You might need a lot more points there than you do and that was another factor when we looked at Boardwalk, buying, even though it was only a 2042 use year, the Boardwalk points are super duper low because of the point inflation that's happened over the years. I mean, if they built Boardwalk and Beach Club today, it's 50% more per night.
Easily
on those resorts.
And you've got those standard rooms at Boardwalk that you can gun for at the 11-month mark.
Yep.
The same thing with the values over at Animal Kingdom.
So it's not always easy to cost that factor in, because it's not it's not a precise number necessarily, but it is something to think about when you're looking at what your cost. Think about what your cost per night is in terms of the number of points.
That's a good comment, Pete. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's come back in and circle through some of the comments here. So Judy is saying that this is a great topic. She's learning so much. And Steve Peterson is saying, we bought our direct Riviera contract due to incentives and length of contract. We bought our resale Grand Cal contracts because we love the resort and the location cannot be beat. And that's my concept right there, Steve, of building a portfolio of DVC contracts with different points for different purposes and different uses. And that's what we were trying to get into and tackle in tonight's show. And I think we did it. I think so. So Grant is saying, when I first bought in, I had poor knowledge and unfortunately got lucky. I chose resorts where I wanted to stay. I'm also an 11-month booker, and I have since learned way more and realized my approach is not for everyone. And I know Grant owns at Alani and Copper Creek, and Grand Villas and cabins are on his radar. And, like, how do you go wrong with either one of those? Like, Nick is saying here, some buy a little direct for perks like DVC lounges, merch discount, Moonlight Magic, annual pass discount. And then, or they're just impatient with the time required to purchase resale, that they are mixed and they love their resale guru, Andy Berry. So
thanks.
Yeah.
Guys.
I never get, I'm sorry, this is just me. I never get that one. It's like, oh my God, I got to wait 2 months to get my points or whatever. It's like, well, first of all, you're not going to use your points for like a year. So what's 2 more months? And it's like, save tens of thousands of dollars or wait 2 months or get it now. And I'm always like, man, that just doesn't, I mean, I get it. People do it, but for me, it's always like, I can wait 2 months and save 10 grand.
Pete and Chad, let me share with you, when I was a direct guide at Disneyland, I remember specifically working with one family from Washington State. We were on the phone and we booked a reservation at with Member Services, and we happened to be a couple points short. A couple of points more than the single use points. So we ended up doing an add-on at Saratoga Springs while we were on the phone, just because they needed the points from, right away. And we can't do that at resale, but they can do it direct from the developer. I mean, the beauty of buying direct is you can sign a contract today, and later tonight or tomorrow, the points will be in your account and you can make your reservation.
Yeah.
Yes,
usually by the time you hang
the
up the phone.
flexibility we have.
Yeah. I get it. But I'm with you, Pete. I'm pocketing the 10 grand and doing that. If it's all just about the timing, right? If that's the whole thing. Exactly. Yeah. Vicky has an interesting question here. She goes, what do you think of people who sell a contract to buy another one? Seems odd to lose that low rate you had on your older contract. So Andy, this was something that shocked me when I was new to DVC as well. People are just buying and selling contracts to change resorts, to change use years.
I'm working with a family today who is going to sell their Vero Beach contract and trade it in and basically buy a Saratoga Springs contract. They want to be able to take the Saratoga longer lease, the 12-year longer lease, lower their dues by 30%, and still be able to book and use those points as network points.
Yeah.
Easy solution.
I get it. I mean, if you're not really satisfied with your contract, I mean, you can, if you're upgrading, if you're changing to a resort you like better, as you just said, a longer use year, a better location, I mean, it's not the worst idea. I mean, yes, it's going to might cost you a little bit of money in the transfer, but that to me is kind of small potatoes versus here I am with a contract that works better for me.
Where we hear it a lot is when people come in and they say, I've got let's pick one, it doesn't matter, a December use year. And we always travel, like you said, Pete, in October and November. So December use year is the worst for them. So we'll go through a long discussion. Well, that's what my guide told me to buy, or when I bought direct, that's what I had to buy. Well, no, you didn't have to, but you just didn't know to answer any other questions.
So Sandy's here. We might have found you a buyer live on the show here. She's saying, hey, Andy, send us the info on the Vero contract.
Okay, Sandy, I'll do
Andy
that for
and
you.
Tomas. So yeah. And then a little bit off topic, but I want to answer this as well because Grant's a great guy. He goes, how's the resale process for Canadians? I know they have a little bit more paperwork when they buy.
Really no issues. I mean, if you're going to do a direct purchase from DVC, if you're in an unregistered province, you're unable to purchase those points from DVC, and those provinces change. So I don't know the latest list of excluded provinces. If you buy resale, we don't exclude any of our partners from our families from north of the border. We love them all, and it just takes a little bit longer process. If you want to sell and you're north of the border, there is something called FERPTA, which is a withholding tax. And I don't want to get into tax discussion now, but that's something that you probably want to kick the tires with and, touch base with a broker that you have confidence in and learn a little bit more about what that FERPTA filing is.
Yeah, I would say follow up with you after this, Andy, as well.
Yes, most definitely.
But speaking of that, let's go ahead and wrap this show up. And Andy, how can people follow up with you after this if they want to come back in and get some one-on-one counseling on any of these tips or techniques, buying, selling, all of that stuff, or building their own DVC portfolio?
Awesome. Well, they can reach me direct. I can't point to my number on the screen. It's not there yet. Maybe it is going to be there. Who knows? But direct, you can get me at 949-412-0850. 949-412-0850. Thanks, Pete. Or Andy at dvcresalemarket.com. Or the easiest way to remember me, Chad, is
like the bottom of Woody's boot.
And because I'm in my Toy Story room, the bottom of Woody's right-hand boot has my name written on it.
Thank God you didn't ask me which shoe it was again. I
Right
never remembered
shoe.
that.
All right, look at this.
Well,
look
that's
what
a
I
good
have
trivia
here. Let me
question.
show you this. I have this little. Can we get an up close to this?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Andy, as in the bottom of Woody's boot at dvcresalemarket.com. Really great guide over there. There's a ton of great guides over there. I just happen to be good friends with Andy. I'm good friends with about half of the team over there as well and talk to them quite regularly. But I know anybody over there will treat you with respect and will do an awesome job serving you. So thank you so much for joining us today, Andy. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pete. And huge shout out of thanks to all of our sponsors at World of DVC, including DVC Resale Market, where Andy works, DVC Rental Store, and Monera Financial for their continued support throughout season 9 and 10 and 11. Andy, we've renewed with you guys for another year.
Congratulations.
Wow.
2 more years of great content coming out. Thank you to our sponsors over at World of DVC. And thank you so much to all of our Patreon supporters as well. We look forward to creating some great experiences and content and posts and services for you to help you get the most out of your membership. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully you learned something in today's show that'll help you go out there and plan something magical for your family. Good night, everybody.
Bye, friends.